Hey friends, I recently noticed that almost 80% of viewers who enjoy these videos haven't subscribed yet. If you like the stories and want to see more, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. Don't forget to leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement makes a huge difference and helps these stories reach more people. Thanks so much for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments. I'd love to know. This happened to me right before Thanksgiving of 2024. I had just turned 18 and finished my first semester at college. I remember feeling so independent, so grown up. I decided to knock out my Christmas shopping early at Walden Galleria Mall in Buffalo. I've always loved getting it done before the Black Friday chaos hits. There's something magical about shopping during the holidays. The decorations, the music playing softly through the speakers, families bundling up in their coats. It just makes everything feel warmer, you know? I'd spent hours wandering through stores. I hit up Victoria's Secret for my sister, grabbed a cologne set for my dad at Macy's, and found this beautiful scarf for my mom at Zara. I also treated myself to a few things. I mean, it was my first solo shopping trip with my own money. By the time I finished, I had 4 or 5 bags weighing down my arms. My feet were killing me. So I found one of those benches near the giant Christmas tree the mall puts up every year and just sat. It was getting late, maybe 8:30 or so, and the crowd was thinning out. The stores were starting to close, and the echoing footsteps in the corridors made the place feel bigger, emptier. That's when he sat down next to me. At first, I didn't even look up. But then he said something like, "Looks like someone's been busy. Starting early on Santa's list?" I laughed. It was harmless, kind of sweet. He seemed like this gentle older man, maybe in his early 60s. Silver hair, wire-rimmed glasses, a warm smile. He honestly reminded me of a skinny Santa Claus, which felt oddly fitting given the setting. We talked for maybe 5 minutes. He told me he'd been coming to this mall since it opened in the 80s. He said he was worried it might close down one day, like so many others. Then he showed me a photo on his phone. His daughter, he said. He told me I reminded him of her. I glanced at the picture. The girl looked nothing like me. She was blonde, younger looking, maybe 16 or 17. And honestly, she didn't look much like him either. Something about it felt off. But I didn't want to be rude, so I just smiled and nodded. Eventually, I felt that familiar awkwardness creeping in. The kind where you know it's time to leave, but you're not sure how to politely end the conversation. So I stood up, gathered my bags, said a quick, "Nice talking to you," and walked toward the exit. I didn't look back. I never do. I got to my car, tossed the bags in the back seat, and started the 10-minute drive home. My family has a few properties, and during the school year, it's usually just me and my younger brother staying at our place in Amherst. My parents travel a lot for work. That night, I knew my brother wouldn't be home. He goes to university at Buffalo and almost always goes out on Thursday nights. Our house sits at the end of a cul-de-sac with just 2 other homes. It's quiet, private. There's this circular patch of grass and trees in the middle, so when you drive in, it feels almost like a little roundabout. As I turned into the driveway, I felt my phone buzz in the cup holder. I glanced down. AirTag detected near you. This item has been moving with you for some time. My stomach dropped. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Maybe someone at the mall dropped one and it got stuck to my car somehow. But my hands started shaking. Instead of pulling all the way into the driveway, I looped back around the cul-de-sac and parked on the street. I had to check. I opened the Find My app and followed the instructions to make the AirTag beep. I sat there, holding my breath, listening. And then I heard it. A faint, high-pitched chirping sound. It wasn't coming from under the car. It was coming from inside. I reached into the back seat and grabbed one of my shopping bags, the one from Zara. I dumped everything out onto the passenger seat. Makeup, a wallet, receipts, and there it was. A small white AirTag tucked into the inside pocket of the bag. I felt like I was going to throw up. I didn't even think. I rolled down the window, threw the AirTag as far as I could into the grass, and slammed my foot on the gas. I sped back to the house, pulled into the driveway, and ran inside. I hit the button to open the garage, hoping to hide my car, but my mom's SUV was already in there. I had no choice but to leave mine outside. I locked the front door, deadbolt, chain, everything. I called my brother, trying to keep my voice steady. I told him what happened. He was at a party. I could hear music in the background, but his tone shifted immediately. If anyone comes to the house, call me. And call 911. I'm serious, Lorraine. Hearing him say that made it real. I went to the living room, turned on the TV, tried to distract myself, but my heart wouldn't stop racing. I kept glancing at the windows, the front door, my phone, and then I heard it. The doorbell. I froze. My whole body went cold, because in the back of my mind, I'd been dreading this exact moment, and now it was happening. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The doorbell rang again, and that's when I realized. He knew where I lived. I didn't answer the door. I couldn't. My legs wouldn't move. The doorbell rang a third time, and I remember thinking how polite that seemed. How normal. Like someone returning a package or asking for directions. But nothing about this was normal. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and pulled up the Ring app. My parents had installed cameras after a string of break-ins in the neighborhood last year. I'd never been more grateful for their paranoia. The screen loaded slowly, agonizingly slowly, and when it finally did, my breath caught in my throat. There was no one there. The porch was empty. The motion sensor light was on, casting harsh shadows across the welcome mat, but the doorway was vacant. I switched to the driveway camera. My car sat exactly where I'd left it, driver's door still hanging slightly open from when I'd bolted inside. I checked the backyard camera. Nothing. Maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe the panic had gotten to me. Maybe. The doorbell rang again. This time, I watched it happen in real time on my phone. The button lit up on the camera feed, but there was still no one standing there. Someone was pressing it and moving away before the camera could catch them, playing with me. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? Someone's at my house, I whispered, backing away from the front door. Someone followed me home and they're ringing the doorbell but hiding from the cameras. I found an AirTag in my shopping bag. Someone's been tracking me. The dispatcher's voice became sharper, more focused. Are you alone in the house? Are the doors locked? Yes, everything's locked. I threw the AirTag away, but they're still here. I'm sending units to your location now. Stay on the line with me. Do not open the door. Is there a room you can secure yourself in? I was already moving, racing up the stairs to my bedroom. It had a lock on the door. A flimsy one, but something. I locked it and shoved my desk chair under the handle like I'd seen in movies. I'm in my room, I said, my voice cracking. How long until they get here? 5 minutes. Officers are en route. Can you see outside from where you are? My bedroom window faced the front yard. Slowly, keeping the lights off, I crept toward it and peeked through the blinds. That's when I saw him, standing beside a silver sedan parked across the street. Just standing there, hands in his pockets, face tilted up toward my window. Even from this distance, even in the dim glow of the streetlight, I recognized him. The man from the mall, Alfonso. He wasn't moving, wasn't hiding. He was just watching, like he wanted me to see him, like he wanted me to know. He's outside, I choked out. The man from the mall, he's standing right there looking at my house. Do not engage. Do not let him know you can see him. Officers are 2 minutes away. Those 2 minutes felt like hours. I watched him through the blinds, my heart hammering against my ribs. He didn't move, didn't pace. He just stood there with that same gentle smile I'd seen at the mall, like we were sharing some private joke. Then I heard it. Sirens in the distance, getting closer. That's when he finally moved. He glanced down the street, then back up at my window one last time. And I swear to God, he waved. A small, casual wave, like he was saying goodnight to a friend. Then he got in his car and drove away. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To really understand what happened that night, to understand how a simple shopping trip turned into a nightmare, I need to take you back to the beginning, back to when everything still felt normal, back to the mall. Buffalo, in late November, is beautiful in a way that only people who've lived through its winters can appreciate. The first real snow had fallen the night before, blanketing everything in pristine white, the kind of snow that makes you forget about the months of gray slush to come. As I drove to Walden Galleria that Thursday afternoon, the sky was that perfect pale blue that appears between storms, and Christmas music was already dominating every radio station. I'd been planning this shopping trip for weeks. My first semester of college had been intense. New friends, new classes, new independence. But I'd managed to save up from my part-time job at the campus bookstore, and I was determined to buy real, thoughtful gifts for my family this year. Not the last-minute gift cards I'd defaulted to in high school. The mall parking lot was surprisingly full for a Thursday. I'd timed it deliberately, after the lunch rush, but before the dinner crowd. I wanted to browse without fighting through masses of people, but I also didn't want the place to feel empty and echoing. There's a sweet spot in mall crowds, and I thought I'd found it. The moment I walked through the entrance near Macy's, that familiar holiday feeling washed over me. Garlands wrapped around every pillar, Oversized ornaments hung from the ceiling, catching the light and casting colorful reflections across the tile floor. A children's choir was performing near the center court, their voices pure and clear, singing Silent Night, while parents recorded on their phones. I took a deep breath and smiled. This was why I loved Christmas shopping. My first stop was Victoria's Secret for my older sister, Maya. She was always particular about her perfume and lotions. Said drugstore brands gave her a rash, so I picked out a gift set with her favorite scent. The pink striped bag felt festive in my hand as I continued on. Macy's was next. Dad's cologne was running low. I'd noticed the bottle on his dresser was nearly empty last time I was home. I found the same brand he always wore, something woody and subtle, and let the sales associate wrap it in silver paper. For Mom, I chose a scarf from Zara. She'd been complaining about the cold during her morning walks, and this one was cashmere blend, soft as a cloud, in her favorite shade of deep burgundy. I also grabbed a few things for myself. A sweater I'd been eyeing, some earrings, a new wallet. My old one was falling apart, and I figured I'd earned a treat. By the time I'd hit Bath and Body Works for my brother, he went through candles like nobody's business, Foot Locker for my cousin, and made one last stop at Sephora. My arms were loaded with bags and my feet were aching. The mall was getting quieter now. That after-dinner lull where families have gone home and the evening crowd hasn't arrived yet. I found my way to one of the wooden benches near the center court, right beside the massive Christmas tree the mall erected every year. It had to be at least 30 feet tall, decorated with thousands of white lights and red velvet boughs. A family was taking photos in front of it, the father hoisting a toddler onto his shoulders, while the mother counted down from 3. I set my bags down with a grateful sigh and just sat, watching people, listening to the distant echo of Christmas music, feeling accomplished and adult and independent. This was my first big shopping trip funded entirely by my own money, my own work. It felt good. The bench creaked slightly as someone sat down beside me. Looks like someone's been busy. I turned, startled. I'd been so lost in my own thoughts that I hadn't noticed him approach. He was older, early 60s, I guessed. Silver hair combed neatly back, wire-rimmed glasses perched on a kind face. He wore a tan overcoat that looked expensive but well-worn, and when he smiled, his eyes crinkled at the corners. He reminded me, oddly enough, of the pictures of Santa Claus in the fancy department store catalogs. The distinguished ones, not the mall Santas. Starting early on Santa's list, he added, gesturing to my collection of bags with a gentle chuckle. I laughed, more out of politeness than anything. Yeah, I like to get ahead of the rush. Black Friday shopping stresses me out. Smart girl, he said, nodding approvingly. I've been doing the same thing for 40 years. You know, I've been coming to this mall since it opened back in '89. Watched it grow, watched it change. He gazed around the corridor with something that looked like nostalgia. Worried it might close one day, like so many others. Everything's moving online now. There was something wistful in his voice that made him seem harmless, lonely even, like a grandfather reminiscing about the good old days. I hope it doesn't close, I offered. I love the atmosphere here, especially during Christmas. Me too, he said softly, Then his expression brightened. You know, you remind me of my daughter. Hold on. He pulled out his phone, swiping through photos with the slow, deliberate movements of someone not quite comfortable with technology. When he found what he was looking for, he turned the screen toward me. There she is. Beautiful, isn't she? I looked at the photo. A young, blonde woman, maybe 16 or 17, smiling at the camera in what looked like a school photo. Generic blue background, pearl earrings, the kind of picture that comes in a frame when you buy it. She's lovely, I said automatically, but something felt off. The girl looked nothing like me. I had dark hair and olive skin, while she was fair and blonde. And frankly, she didn't look much like him either. Too young to be his daughter, honestly. More like a granddaughter. Maybe even just a stock photo. I shook the thought away. I was being paranoid. Plenty of kids don't look like their parents. She's about your age, he continued, putting the phone away. Off at college now. I don't see her much anymore. That's why I like coming to the mall, people watching, you know? Makes me feel less alone. The admission made me uncomfortable. Not in a dangerous way, just in that awkward way where someone shares too much too fast and you're not sure how to respond. I glanced at my phone, as if checking the time. Well, I should probably head out. Long drive home and all. It wasn't a long drive, 10 minutes tops, but it was the polite lie people tell when they want to exit a conversation. Of course, he said, standing as I gathered my bags. Safe travels, and happy holidays. You too, I said with a smile, already turning away. I didn't look back as I walked toward the exit. I never do. I find it makes awkward encounters end more smoothly if you just commit to leaving. The cold hit me as soon as I pushed through the doors. That sharp buffalo wind that cuts right through your coat. I'd parked in one of the far lots, trying to save the close spots for people with kids or mobility issues. By the time I reached my car, I'd already forgotten about the man. I loaded my bags into the back seat, climbed into the driver's seat, and started the engine. The radio came on automatically, playing Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You, and I turned it up, singing along as I pulled out of the parking space. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. Probable Maya texting to see when I'd be home, but I ignored it. I was driving after all. Responsible. Safe. The snow had started falling again. Soft flurries that caught in my headlights like tiny stars. I hummed along with the music, already mentally planning how I'd wrap the gifts, what color paper I'd use for each person. Everything felt perfect, normal, safe. I had no idea that at that very moment, someone was tracking my every movement. That my phone wasn't buzzing with a text from my sister, but with a warning that would change everything. That the friendly old man from the mall had just climbed into a silver sedan 3 rows over, waiting to follow me home. The police arrived within minutes, but Alfonso was already gone. 2 officers, one older with a gray mustache, the other younger and lean, walked the perimeter of my house with flashlights, checking the bushes, the side gate, underneath my car. The younger one found tire tracks in the fresh snow across the street where the silver sedan had been parked. But that was it. No fingerprints on the doorbell. No footprints leading to the door. He'd been smart enough to stay on the concrete. You did the right thing calling us, the older officer said, standing in my living room with his notepad out. Tell me again about the AirTag. I explained everything. The mall, the man, the notification, finding it in my Zara bag, throwing it away. The officer's expression darkened with each detail. Do you still have the AirTag? My stomach sank. No, I threw it out the window when I was in my car, into the grass on the street. He nodded slowly, like he'd expected that answer. Most people do. It's instinct. You want it away from you, but it would have been helpful as evidence. Can you find it? I asked. It should still be out there somewhere. They searched for 20 minutes with flashlights, combing through the snow-dusted grass along the cul-de-sac. They found nothing. Either Alfonso had circled back and retrieved it, or the snow had buried it too well. We'll file a report, the older officer said. And I want you to call mall security first thing tomorrow. They might have surveillance footage from when you were sitting on that bench. If this man slipped something into your bag, the cameras might have caught it. What about the doorbell? I asked. The ring footage. Can't you use that? We'll take a copy, but without a clear image of his face, it's circumstantial. He never technically trespassed. Standing on a public street isn't a crime. And pressing a doorbell. He trailed off with an apologetic shrug. It's not enough for an arrest warrant, but it is enough to establish a pattern if he escalates. If he escalates. The words made my blood run cold. The younger officer suggested I stay somewhere else for the night. A friend's place, maybe, or a hotel. But my brother texted saying he was on his way home, and I didn't want to leave the house unprotected. What if Alfonso came back and broke in? What if he was waiting for me to leave? After the police left, I sat on the couch with every light in the house blazing, my phone clutched in my hand, waiting for my brother. The TV was on, but I wasn't watching it, just staring at the front door, listening for any sound that didn't belong. Cody arrived 30 minutes later, considerably more sober than he'd been on the phone. He locked every door and window, checked every room, even looked in the closets like we were kids afraid of monsters again. You should have called me sooner, he said, his jaw tight. I would have left the party. I called 911 first. That's what you told me to do. He pulled me into a hug that smelled like his cologne and winter air. You did good, Lorraine. You did everything right. But it didn't feel right. It felt like the beginning of something terrible. I tried to sleep that night. I really did. Cody crashed on my bedroom floor with a baseball bat beside him. His idea of protection, which would have been funny under different circumstances. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw Alfonso's face in the streetlight. That calm, patient expression. That little wave. He knows where I live. The thought circled endlessly in my mind. He'd followed me from the mall, 10 minutes of turns and traffic lights, all the way to my house. He knew which bedroom window was mine. He knew I was alone. And somewhere out there, he was still watching. Around 3 a.m., I heard it. A car engine, idling slowly down the street. I sat bolt upright, heart hammering. Cody was snoring softly on the floor, dead to the world. I crept to the window and peeked through the blinds. A silver sedan rolled past, moving so slowly it was barely above a crawl. The driver was just a silhouette, but something about the shape, the angle of the head, the posture, sent ice through my veins. The car paused directly in front of our house. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and rapid. My hand found my phone on the nightstand, thumb hovering over 911. Then the horn sounded. Not a long blast, just two short chirps. Beep, beep, like a greeting, like I'm here. The car rolled forward and disappeared around the curve of the cul-de-sac. I stood frozen at the window for 10 minutes, waiting for it to come back. It didn't. When I finally crawled back into bed, I kept the curtains open and the lights on. I told myself it could have been anyone. A lost driver, someone turning around, a neighbor coming home late. But I knew better. He was letting me know that throwing away the AirTag didn't matter. He already had what he needed. He had my address. He had my routine. He had me. The tapping started just before dawn. Soft at first. So soft I thought it was a branch brushing against the house. Tap, 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 rhythmic, deliberate, coming from my window. I opened my eyes in the gray pre-dawn light. Every muscle in my body locked rigid. Cody was still asleep on the floor, his breathing steady and deep. The tapping continued. Tap, tap, tap. My bedroom was on the second floor. There was no tree close enough to reach the window. No rational explanation for that sound. I turned my head slowly toward the glass, barely breathing. And that's when I saw him. His face was pressed against the window, pale and distorted through the glass. Alfonso Barnes. His breath fogged the pane with each exhale, creating expanding circles of condensation that obscured and revealed his features in a horrible rhythm. His wire-rimmed glasses were gone. His eyes were wide, unblinking, and he was smiling. Not the gentle, grandfatherly smile from the mall. This was something else entirely, stretched too wide, too fixed, like a mask. The scream tore out of me before I could stop it. Cody jolted awake, grabbing the baseball bat. What? Where? I pointed at the window with a shaking hand, but by the time he looked, the face was gone. Just the fogged glass remained, the condensation already fading. He was right there, I choked out. Second floor, he was at my window. Cody was already on the phone with 911, his voice sharp and urgent as he ran to look outside. I heard him swearing, heard the panic breaking through his usually calm demeanor. This time, the police found evidence. Beneath my window, in the flower bed, were fresh shoe prints, large, deep impressions in the soft soil. Someone had used a ladder. They found it lying in the bushes around the side of the house, a telescoping aluminum ladder that must have been stored in our garage. The side door to the garage had been jimmied open, the lock broken. He'd been inside our property. He'd taken our ladder. He'd climbed to my second-story window and stood there, watching me sleep. But that wasn't the worst part. On the front porch, wedged under the doormat, the officers found a small package. Just a Ziploc bag with something inside. It was a photograph, printed on glossy paper, slightly blurred like it had been taken from a distance or zoomed in too far. It was me, sitting on the bench at the mall, bags scattered around my feet, looking down at my phone. The angle suggested it had been taken from across the corridor, maybe from one of the storefronts. I was smiling at something on my screen, completely unaware I was being photographed. On the back, written in neat blue ink, "You reminded me of someone special." My hands shook so badly I dropped it. The detective who took over the case was a woman named Sarah Chen. She had tired eyes and a no-nonsense voice that somehow made me feel both safer and more terrified. "Alfonso J. Barnes," she said, reading from her computer screen in the police station later that morning. 62 years old, 3 prior complaints filed against him, 2 in Buffalo, 1 in Rochester. All involving young women, all dropped due to insufficient evidence. Why didn't anyone stop him? My voice cracked. Because he's careful. He never crosses the line far enough to make charges stick. The AirTag tracking, the photographs, it's all in a legal gray area. Following someone isn't illegal. Taking pictures in public isn't illegal. Even standing on a public street looking at a house. She trailed off, her frustration evident. But breaking into your garage, using your ladder, that's trespassing with criminal intent. We can arrest him for that if we find him. If you find him? His apartment is empty. Landlord says he cleared out 2 days ago. No forwarding address. We've issued a warrant, but... She looked at me with something close to pity. I need you to be careful. Very careful. Change your routine. Vary your routes. Consider staying somewhere else until we locate him. But where could I go where he wouldn't find me? He'd tracked me with a device the size of a quarter. He'd found my house after a single shopping trip. What was to stop him from finding me anywhere? That was 11 months ago. They never found Alfonso Barnes. The warrant is still active. His picture circulated to law enforcement across New York State, but he's vanished like smoke. I don't go to malls anymore. I can't. The smell of cinnamon and pine, those classic Christmas scents, makes my chest tighten. I do all my shopping online now, delivered to my parents' house where someone's always home. I transferred to a different college, changed my phone number, deleted all my social media. My brother installed a full security system with cameras covering every angle of our property. But none of it makes me feel safe, because every night before I sleep, I check my phone. I open the Find My app and scan for unknown AirTags. I check under my car before I drive anywhere. I look over my shoulder in parking lots. And sometimes, late at night when I'm lying in bed, I remember that smile. That too wide, too fixed smile pressed against my window. And I wonder if he's still out there, watching someone else, waiting to remind them of someone special. If Lorraine's story made you check your bags twice, you understand what vigilance means. Subscribe to keep awareness alive, and comment, "Stay alert," if you stand with every survivor who refused to stay silent. I want to tell you about Chicago in the spring, about how the morning light hits the glass towers on Michigan Avenue and turns the whole city into something out of a dream, about the smell of coffee from corner cafes mixing with the crisp lake breeze, about how I felt walking to the Red Line station at 7:15 every morning, briefcase in hand, feeling like I'd finally made it. My name is Jesse Harlan. I'm 26, and 6 months ago, I moved to Chicago for a marketing position at a mid-sized firm downtown. It was everything I'd worked for. Good salary, great benefits, a sleek apartment in Lincoln Park that I could barely afford but loved anyway. My parents were proud. My friends were jealous. I posted pictures of the skyline with captions like, "New city, new me," and genuinely meant it. The commute was part of the romance, honestly. I'd wake up at 6:30, make pour-over coffee in my tiny kitchen, and walk 4 blocks to the Fullerton station. The train would be crowded, but not unbearable. That perfect density where you felt part of something larger than yourself. I'd listen to podcasts about marketing trends or true crime stories, watching the city wake up through smudged train windows. For the first month, everything was perfect. Then my phone buzzed on a Tuesday morning in late April. I was standing on the platform, earbuds in, half listening to a podcast about consumer psychology, when the notification appeared. AirTag Detected Near You. This AirTag has been moving with you for a while. I stared at the screen, confused. I didn't own any AirTags. I pulled out my earbuds and looked around the platform. Maybe 30 people waiting for the northbound train. Everyone absorbed in their phones or staring at the tracks with that glazed commuter expression. I tapped the notification. It offered to make the AirTag play a sound, but I dismissed it instead. Probably a glitch. Maybe someone on the platform had one in their bag, and my phone picked it up by mistake. These things happened with Bluetooth devices, right? The train arrived. I got on. I forgot about it. But the next morning, it happened again. Same notification. Same message. AirTag detected near you. This time, I tried to make it beep. The app said it was nearby but wouldn't emit a sound. I checked my purse. Nothing. I felt around the pockets of my coat, my laptop bag, even my pant pockets. Nothing. By the 3rd day, I was actively looking for it. Dumping my entire bag onto my bed, checking the linings, the zippers, the hidden compartments. Still nothing. But the notification kept appearing, always during my commute, always with that same unsettling message. I started paying attention to my surroundings differently. That man in the gray suit who got on at the same stop every morning, had he always been there? The woman with the purple backpack who stood near the doors, was she watching me? I'd catch myself scanning faces, looking for recognition, for intent. Small things began to bother me. A metallic clinking sound in my bag that I couldn't identify. The feeling that someone was standing too close in the crowded car. The way certain passengers seemed to exit at my stop more frequently than chance would allow. I told myself I was being paranoid. Chicago was a city of 3 million people. Coincidences happened. Commuter patterns overlapped. The AirTag notification was probably just a technical error, some quirk of Apple's tracking system that would resolve itself. But deep down, in that primitive part of the brain that still remembers being prey, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong. Not yet. That realization would come later, in my apartment, when I finally found where the AirTag was hidden, and understood that someone had been much, much closer than I ever imagined. I started documenting everything on day 4, screenshots of every notification, with timestamps and locations. I created a folder on my phone labeled AirTag Evidence because some instinct told me I might need proof. Each morning, the alert would appear somewhere between Fullerton Station and my office on Wacker Drive. Each evening, it would ping again on my commute home. AirTag Detected Near You. This AirTag has been moving with you for a while. The same message, over and over, like a digital shadow I couldn't shake. I called Apple support on Thursday. The customer service rep was polite but ultimately unhelpful. The safety feature is working as intended, she explained. It's designed to alert you if an unknown AirTag is traveling with you. Have you checked all your belongings thoroughly? Multiple times, I said, trying to keep the frustration from my voice. I've emptied every bag, every pocket. There's nothing. Sometimes they can be quite small and easy to miss. I'd recommend checking again, and if you continue to have concerns, you can file a report with local law enforcement. Local law enforcement, right. I could already imagine that conversation. Hi, my phone says there's a tracking device near me, but I can't find it, and I have no evidence of any actual threat. They'd probably think I was paranoid or attention-seeking. But by Friday, the paranoia had evolved into determination. I decided to change my routine. If the AirTag was appearing during my train commute, maybe it was attached to something at the station. A bench I always sat on, a pillar I leaned against. Maybe it had nothing to do with me specifically. So I drove to work instead. My apartment building had parking underneath, and my office had a garage 2 blocks away. I could avoid public transit entirely. It would cost more and take longer with traffic, but at least I'd know for sure. I loaded my laptop bag into the passenger seat, started the engine, and pulled out onto Fullerton Avenue. My phone was mounted on the dashboard, Spotify playing a playlist I'd carefully curated to calm my nerves. Then, at the stoplight on Clark Street, my phone buzzed. AirTag detected near you. This AirTag has been moving with you for a while. My blood went cold. I was in my car, my private vehicle, nowhere near the train station, which meant the AirTag wasn't at Fullerton Station at all. It was on me, or in my car. At the next red light, I opened the Find My app with shaking hands and selected Find Nearby. A circular radar appeared on screen, pulsing as it searched. The interface showed a series of concentric rings with a green dot in the center. Me. And somewhere in those rings was the AirTag. I tapped Play Sound. For a moment, nothing. Then I heard it. A faint, high-pitched beeping. Not from my bag, not from my pockets. It was coming from below me. I pulled into a McDonald's parking lot and practically threw myself out of the car. Kneeling on the pavement, I reached under the driver's seat, fingers searching blindly. That's when I felt it. Taped to the metal frame beneath the cushion. A small, smooth disc. I ripped it free. A white AirTag, slightly dusty, secured with black electrical tape. My hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped it. Someone had put this in my car. Someone had accessed my vehicle, crawled underneath the seat, and attached a tracking device. Someone had been watching my every movement for at least a week. I sat there on the grimy pavement of a McDonald's parking lot, staring at the innocent-looking piece of technology in my palm, and felt violently sick. But I also felt something else. Relief. I'd found it. It was over. I pulled the battery out right there, watching the tiny device go dark and powerless. Then I drove straight to the nearest police station. The officer who took my report was younger than I expected, with kind eyes and a patient demeanor. He examined the AirTag, photographed it, recorded the serial number. "Any idea who might have done this?" he asked. "No. None. I just moved here 6 months ago. I don't have an ex-boyfriend, no workplace conflicts, nothing." He nodded slowly. "It's probably a prank. Unfortunately, we see this sometimes. People think it's funny to freak strangers out there. But we'll file the report, and if anything else happens, you'll have documentation." A prank? The word felt both insulting and comforting. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was just some random act of cruelty by a bored stranger. That night, I went home and ordered Thai food. I drank a glass of wine, something I rarely did on weeknights, and watched mindless reality TV until midnight. For the first time in a week, I felt safe. I fell asleep with my phone on my nightstand. No alerts, no notifications. Just silence. Just peace. I should have known it wouldn't last. 2 nights of perfect sleep. 2 nights of waking up refreshed, checking my phone and seeing nothing but normal notifications. Texts from friends, work emails, a reminder about a dentist appointment. I was starting to believe the officer had been right. A prank. A random act of cruelty that was over now. Monday evening, I stayed late at the office finishing a presentation deck. By the time I left, the sun had already set, and Michigan Avenue was alive with that electric evening energy. People heading to dinner. Tourists taking photos. The city humming with life. I felt good, normal, like myself again. The parking garage was nearly empty when I retrieved my car. I drove home listening to a comedy podcast, actually laughing at the jokes. When I pulled into my building's underground lot, I noticed my usual spot was taken, so I parked 1 row over. A minor inconvenience. Nothing worth worrying about. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt longer than usual. A neighbor got on at the 2nd floor, Mrs. Chen from 4G, and we exchanged polite smiles. She got off at 3. I continued alone. When the doors opened on my floor, I noticed it immediately. My apartment door, 4J, at the end of the hall, was open. Not wide open, but ajar. Maybe 2 inches of darkness visible between the door and the frame. I froze, my keychain dangling from my fingers. Had I forgotten to close it this morning? I'd been rushing, running late after sleeping through my alarm. Maybe I'd pulled it shut, but the latch hadn't caught. But I always double-checked. Always. It was a habit so ingrained I did it without thinking. I approached slowly, every nerve in my body screaming at me to turn around, to call someone, to not go inside. But it was my apartment, my space, and maybe I really had just forgotten. I pushed the door open with my foot, reaching for the light switch. The lights were off, all of them. I never left all the lights off. I always kept at least the kitchen light on for when I came home after dark. Hello? My voice sounded small, childlike. Silence. I flipped the switch. The living room flooded with light, revealing exactly what I'd left that morning. My coffee mug on the side table. The throw blanket folded over the couch arm. My marketing books stacked neatly on the shelf. Nothing was disturbed. Nothing was stolen. Everything was perfectly, unnaturally in place, which somehow made it worse. I checked every room with my phone in hand, 911 already dialed, my thumb hovering over the call button. The bedroom, untouched. The bathroom, exactly as I'd left it. The kitchen, my breakfast dishes still in the sink. But the apartment felt different, violated, like the air itself had been contaminated by an unwelcome presence. I called the police. 2 detectives arrived within 30 minutes. They were thorough, professional, examining the door lock with flashlights, checking the windows, looking for any signs of forced entry. The lock's intact, the older detective said, running his finger along the door frame. No scratches, no damage. Do you have a spare key? The question made my stomach drop. Yes, under the flower pot, by the door. We went back into the hallway. The flower pot sat where it always did, a sad little succulent that I kept forgetting to water. The detective lifted it. No key. When's the last time you checked for it? He asked. I don't know. Weeks, maybe longer. I never use it. It's just for emergencies. He exchanged a glance with his partner. Ma'am, I think someone's had access to your apartment for a while. The AirTag in your car. They were tracking your movements, learning your schedule. They knew when you'd be gone. The implication settled over me like ice water. Someone had been inside my apartment. Not tonight for the first time, but possibly many times before. Walking through my rooms while I slept, touching my things, watching, waiting. Why didn't they take anything? I whispered. The younger detective's expression was grim. Because they didn't want you to know they'd been here. Tonight was different. Tonight they wanted you to know. I didn't sleep that night, or the next. I changed the locks, installed a chain, added a security camera pointing at my door. My parents begged me to move back home to Indiana. My friends offered their couches, but moving felt like admitting defeat, like letting them win. So I stayed. But I'm not the same person who moved to Chicago full of hope and ambition. Now I flinch at every notification. I check under my car seat every single day. I arrive home at different times, taking different routes, never establishing a pattern. The cameras show nothing. No one approaches my door. No alerts appear on my phone. But I know they're still out there, watching, waiting. Technology was supposed to make me feel connected, empowered, safe. Instead, it reminds me every single day that I'm never truly alone. And sometimes, that's the most terrifying thing of all. If you believe Jesse's story proves how fragile safety really is, show it matters. Subscribe if you think no one should feel watched in their own home. Drop "I choose awareness" in the comments if you'd have reported that open door too. My name is John T. Stapleton. I'm 42 years old, and I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. I've never stalked anyone in my life. I've never harassed a woman, never sent threatening messages, never followed someone without their knowledge. But for 6 months, the entire justice system believed I had. This isn't a story about being a victim. I hate that word. This is a warning about how easily your entire life can be dismantled by someone who knows exactly which buttons to push and which technologies to exploit. Her name was Jacqueline R. Kennedy. We met at a company barbecue 3 years ago. I was a construction foreman for a commercial building firm. She worked in the front office handling permits and contractor relations. She was 34, sharp as a knife, with this intensity that I mistook for passion. We dated for nearly 3 years. At first, it was good. Great, even. But slowly, things shifted. She needed to know where I was constantly. She'd text me 20 times a day, call if I didn't respond within minutes. She wanted access to my phone, my email, my social media passwords. If you have nothing to hide, she'd say, why does it matter? I gave her my passwords. That was my first mistake. When I finally ended things last October, she took it surprisingly well. Too well. She said she understood, that we wanted different things, that we'd remain friends. We divided our shared belongings, a few pieces of furniture, some kitchen stuff, and went our separate ways. For 2 weeks, everything was fine. Then the strangeness began. Photos started appearing in my iCloud storage that I didn't take. Pictures of Jacqueline's apartment building, her car, the coffee shop she went to every morning. Time-stamped from my phone, but I'd never been to any of those places. Then my coworkers started asking questions. Hey, John, why are you texting Jackie at 2 in the morning? My foreman, Eddie, showed me screenshots, messages sent from my number, asking where she was, saying I needed to see her, increasingly desperate in tone. But I hadn't sent them. I was asleep at 2 a.m. I hadn't contacted Jacqueline at all since the breakup. Maybe your phone got hacked, Eddie suggested, but his expression said he didn't quite believe it. Neither did the police. They showed up at the construction site on a Tuesday morning, 2 detectives in plain clothes, asking for me by name. My crew went silent as I walked over, concrete dust on my jeans, confusion turning to dread. John T.P. Stapleton. That's me. We have a warrant for your arrest. Jacqueline Kennedy has filed a restraining order and pressed charges for stalking and harassment. You need to come with us. I stood there, surrounded by my coworkers, the morning sun beating down on us, and felt my entire world tilt sideways. There's been a mistake, I said. But the evidence said otherwise. They found an AirTag under Jacqueline's car, attached to the underside of her rear bumper with industrial adhesive, tracked to my Apple ID, purchase receipt traced to my credit card. I didn't buy that, I told the detectives in the interrogation room. I've never even owned an AirTag. They showed me the receipt. Apple Store, Schaumburg. Purchased 6 weeks ago. My card, my account, my digital signature on the transaction. Then how do you explain this? The detective slid a folder across the table. Inside were screenshots, dozens of them. Text messages from my number to Jacqueline's sent at all hours. Where are you? I need to see you. You can't just end things like this. I'm outside. I know you're home. My hands shook as I flipped through them. The phone number was mine. The tone, the desperation. It sounded like something a stalker would write. But I hadn't written any of it. "These messages," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I never sent these." "Mr. Stapleton, your phone records confirm these were sent from your device. Then someone has access to my phone. Someone is framing you." The detective's tone made it clear what he thought of that defense. They showed me more. Emails I'd allegedly sent to her workplace, making her coworkers uncomfortable. GPS data from my truck showing multiple drives past her apartment at night. Routes I'd never taken. Times I was provably elsewhere. But the GPS data came from my vehicle's tracking system, the one I'd installed for work logistics. The emails originated from my IP address. The texts came from my phone. Every piece of evidence pointed to me. I was released on bail, but the damage was done. By the end of the week, I was suspended from work pending investigation. "Company policy," my boss said, not meeting my eyes. "Until this gets resolved." It never got resolved. 2 weeks later, I was fired. My friends stopped calling. My brother asked me point blank if I'd done something. Even my mother's voice on the phone carried doubt. I started questioning everything. Had I sent those messages and forgotten? Was I having some kind of breakdown? I'd wake up at 3 a.m., checking my phone's sent folder, my email history, my cloud storage, obsessively verifying I hadn't done something without remembering. The psychological unraveling was worse than the legal trouble. That's when I hired Rebecca Torres, a lawyer who specialized in cybersecurity cases. She was expensive, money I didn't have, but she was the first person who didn't look at me like I was lying. "Your ex-girlfriend," she said, reviewing the evidence. "Did she ever have access to your devices, your passwords?" "Yes. When we were dating, the realization hit me like a physical blow. She had all of them." Rebecca nodded grimly. "Then she didn't just have access. She cloned your digital identity. Everything you're being accused of, she did it. And she made it look like you." The break in the case came from the last person I expected, Jacqueline's new boyfriend. His name was Marcus Reed, a software engineer she had started dating a month after our breakup. Rebecca got a call from his attorney on a Wednesday afternoon, 3 weeks into my legal nightmare. Marcus wanted to talk. He wanted to confess. We met at Rebecca's office. Me, Rebecca, Marcus, his lawyer, and 2 detectives. Marcus looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, hands trembling as he held a coffee cup he never drank from. "I didn't know at first," he said, his voice hollow. "I swear to God, I thought I was helping her stay safe from a stalker." He explained how Jacqueline had told him about her dangerous ex-boyfriend, me, who wouldn't leave her alone, how she was terrified, how she needed protection. Marcus, eager to be her hero, had believed every word. "She asked me to help her document everything," he continued. "Set up monitoring software on her devices to catch you in the act. I'm a software engineer, so I knew how to do it. But then she started asking me to do other things. Other things. like accessing my Apple ID using passwords she'd kept, like purchasing an AirTag using my stored credit card information, like installing a VPN to spoof my IP address and send emails from my location. She had this notebook, Marcus said, his voice breaking, filled with notes about her daily routine, her address, her schedule. She told me to plant it in your house during the police search, said it would be the final piece of evidence. The detectives exchanged glances. They'd found that notebook during their warrant execution. Neat handwriting documenting Jacqueline's movements, dates and times, locations. It had been damning evidence, proof of obsessive stalking. I couldn't do it, Marcus whispered. I couldn't plant false evidence. That's when I started questioning everything else. I went through her computer and found all of it, the cloned credentials, the spoofed messages, screenshots she'd edited to make them look worse. She'd been manufacturing evidence for months. Why are you telling us this now? One of the detectives asked. Marcus looked up, tears streaming down his face. Because 2 nights ago she asked me to do it again. To a different guy. Someone she'd gone on 3 dates with who didn't want to see her anymore. She had his passwords, his information, everything. She was going to destroy him the same way she destroyed John. The silence in that room was suffocating. She's done this before, he said. I found evidence of another case 2 years ago in Michigan. Different name, same pattern. She ruins men who leave her. The charges against me were dropped within 48 hours. The district attorney issued a formal apology. Jacqueline Kennedy was arrested and charged with identity theft, fraud, filing false police reports, and conspiracy to commit perjury. She pled guilty to avoid trial. 18 months in prison, 5 years probation, mandatory psychiatric evaluation. Justice was served, but not peace. My job didn't take me back. Too much controversy, they said. Half my friends never apologized, just quietly unfriended me on social media. The neighbors still looked at me differently. My nephew asked his mother if Uncle John was the bad man on TV. You can't unring a bell. You can't untell a story once it's spread. Even with my name cleared, the stain remained. I moved to a different state, changed my phone number, started over with a new construction company that didn't Google my name too carefully. I deleted all my social media, closed my cloud accounts, changed every password to something random that I wrote down on paper and locked in a safe. But the paranoia never fully left. Every time my phone buzzes with an unfamiliar notification, I freeze. Every time I get an email from an address I don't recognize, I assume it's another trap. I check my credit report monthly, my Apple ID weekly, my truck's GPS daily, because I learned the hardest way possible that the person you trust most can become your worst enemy. That the technology meant to connect us can be weaponized with surgical precision. That obsession, combined with technical knowledge, can destroy a life more efficiently than any physical weapon. Jacqueline taught me that love and hate are separated by the thinnest of lines, and that sometimes the cruelest thing someone can do isn't hurt you directly. It's make the whole world believe you're the monster. 3 stories, 3 lives altered forever by a device the size of a quarter. Lorraine still checks every shopping bag before she leaves a store. Jessie installed 7 cameras in her apartment and sleeps with a baseball bat beside her bed. And me? I carry a device detector in my truck, scanning for rogue AirTags everywhere I go. We're the lucky ones, really. We survived. We're still here to tell our stories. But there are others who aren't so fortunate. Others who didn't catch the warning signs in T. Others whose stories ended differently. Technology was supposed to make us safer, more connected, more in control of our lives. Instead, it's created new vulnerabilities we're only beginning to understand. Every ping, every alert, every invisible connection transmitted through the air. It's a reminder of how easily safety can vanish. An AirTag costs $29. It fits in the palm of your hand. It was designed to help you find your keys, your bag, your lost wallet. But in the wrong hands, it becomes something else entirely. A weapon, a violation, a way to turn someone's life into a waking nightmare. So I'll leave you with this. Check your bags, check your car, check the Find My app on your phone, even if you don't own any AirTags. Vary your routines. Trust your instincts. And if something feels wrong, if you get that notification, that ping, that sense of being watched, don't ignore it. Because sometimes the thing tracking you isn't lost. It's hunting. Stay alert, stay safe, and always check your surroundings. If John's story made you realize how easy it is to weaponize love and trust, don't ignore it. Subscribe if you believe in accountability, and type "never again" if you know technology should serve, not destroy lives.